Good afternoon, everyone. The topic for today's class is planning. The contents are introduction, purpose of planning, definition, components of planning, types of health planning, steps in planning process, conclusion, and references. Introduction. Planning have acquired great importance during the past 2 decades. The present global picture of health is one of the most divergent trends. These trends call for integrated and coordinated planning of preventive and treatment services for health and oral health. Planning helps in preparing a set of decisions for action in the future, enable priorities to be set, taking into account situations involved to reach the desired outcome within the limited resources available. Purpose of planning: to match the limited resources with many problems, to eliminate wasteful expenditure or duplication of expenditure, to develop best course of action to accomplish a defined objective. The need for planning, evaluating, and replanning health services and manpower structures to meet the carefully designed goals is very much in need. So this is the purpose of planning. Coming to the definition, planning is a systematic approach to defining the problem, setting priorities, developing specific goals and objectives, and determining alternative strategies and methods of implementation. E.C. Banfield has defined the term plan as a plan is a decision about a course of action. Andrew Green has defined planning as the systematic approach to attaining explicit objectives through efficient and appropriate use of existing resources available now and in future. Types of health planning. Spiegel and Associates have outlined 4 types of the health planning, that is problem-solving planning, program planning, coordination of efforts and activities planning, and planning for the allocation of resources. So problem-solving planning involves the identification and resolution of problem. For example, if there is a problem of dental fluorosis, we have to plan a program for this. Second is program planning, which entails designing a course of action for circumscribed health problem. Example, planning a school-based fluoride mouth rinse program for the prevention of the caries. Program planning involves a variety of elements involving the identification of the program needs, capacities, resources allocation, assuring service delivery, preparing to respond to critical events, and evaluation of the outcomes. Third is coordination of efforts and activities planning, which aims to increase the availability, efficiency, productivity, effectiveness, and other aspects of activities and programs. Example, opening of obstetric and pediatric wards in a hospital located in rural area. Program planning involves a variety of elements, including these capacities. Next is planning for the allocation of resources, which involves selecting the best alternative to achieve a desired goal. Example, planning for the effective utilization of the resources by replacement of the fluoride mouth rinse program with sealant program in the areas of the high caries prevalence. Coming to the steps in the planning process, so this is very important. So this is the planning cycle in which we will discuss every step of the planning cycle in detail. First is identify the problem, which includes conducting the need assessment. The reasons are to determine the cause of problem, to identify the extent and severity of problem, to evaluate the effectiveness of the program by obtaining baseline information and measuring the amount of progress achieved in solving the problem. The information required includes number of individuals in the population, geographic distribution, rate of growth, population density, ethnic background, diet and nutritional levels, standard of living, and the healthcare facilities. Public and private school system, general health profile, distribution of disease, history of dental programs, and the fluoride content. The other options available are to coordinate with the research activities of the other health agencies, and to investigate in the past surveys that have been done. Data collection. Once the data is obtained from the need assessment, we have to collect the data, which is a process of gathering and measuring all information. It is obtained by various techniques like surveys, questionnaire, clinical examination, or the personal communication. Analysis of data. Once the data is obtained from the need assessment, it has to be analyzed before the priorities are determined. Analysis helps us to define problem and identify the extent and severity, obtain profile of community, determine priorities, and evaluate the effectiveness of the program. The second step in the planning cycle is determining priority. Priority determination is a method of imposing people's value and judgment of what is important onto the raw data. With limited resources, it becomes necessary to establish priorities so as to allow the most efficient allocation of resources. A health advisory committee or task force represent consumers, leaders, and providers which should be established to help in the development of policies. When setting the priorities, the planner must ask the following questions. How serious is the problem? What percent of the population is affected, and the number of individuals who are affected by the problem to which it is being targeted. Example, if more number of children are affected by caries, the priority should address the problem of the caries. If the health problem is dental disease, generally more than one population is affected. So the risk of the need assessment include preschool and school children, mentally and physically disabled person, medically compromised person, elderly person, expected mothers, and low income groups. Next step is the development of program goals and objectives. Goal is defined as the ultimate desire towards which the objectives and resources are directed. An objective is precise, which can be achieved or not achieved. So objective should be what, telling the nature of the condition, extent, the scope and magnitude, who, the group, where, the geographical area, and when is the time. The objectives can be short-term objective or long-term objective, and the program objective can be in the form of outcome or process objective. Outcome means measuring the quantitative data or the outcome of the specific objective. Process objective, which states the specific process by which a public health problem can be reduced or prevented. Resource identification, which implies the manpower, money, materials, skills, knowledge, technique, and time needed or available for the performance or support of the action. The criteria which is used to determine the resources is that appropriateness, adequacy, effectiveness, and efficiency. So these are the four criteria on which we identify the resources. Next is identifying constraints. When planning any program, there are usually many constraints or difficulties which can occur. By identifying these constraints early, we can modify the design of the program to meet the objectives, thereby creating more practical and realistic plan. Next is to identify alternative strategies. Being aware of the constraints and the given resources, the planner should consider alternative strategies which might be effective in attaining the objectives. It is always necessary to generate a sufficient number of alternatives. If the preventive measures were considered to be cost effective as well as practical to implement, the planner would choose the measure as best of alternative. Next is the development of the implementation strategies, which is completed by asking the following questions. Why? That is the effect of objective. What? Activities required to achieve the objectives. Who? The individuals. When? The chronological sequence. How? The materials and methods. And how much is the cost? To develop an implementation strategy, a planner must know what specific activity he or she wants to do. Implementation, it refers to the process of putting the plan into action, which is called as implementation. Most of the health programs can be divided into 4 phases. That is the pilot phase, that which is the trial phase, control phase, which is run under regulated conditions, actualization phase, where the program strategy is subjected to realistic condition, and operational phase, where the program is an ongoing part of the structure. So the implementation process involves individuals, organizations, and community. Only through teamwork between individual and environment, implementation can be successful. Next is monitoring, which refers to the maintenance of ongoing watch over the activities of health services. It denotes not only watching, but using the observation as a basis of continuous modification of goals, plans, or activities. It includes input data, process data, and output data. Conclusion: a plan can play a vital role in helping to avoid mistakes and recognize the opportunities. Planning means looking ahead. Planning helps in forecasting the future, making the future visible to some extent. However, it is worthwhile only if the change is seen to be necessary and if plans are capable of being implemented. So these are the references. Thank you.